The verse of the day is Galatians 6:4-5, and it says, "Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct." The main thing that sticks out to me in today's verse is compare. The word comparison. It says, "Then you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else." I also looked up the word conduct, because the last sentence says, "For we are each responsible for our own conduct." Conduct is just the way someone behaves. We're all responsible for our own behavior. You might be like, okay, today's verse I feel like could contradict yesterday's verse where you're like, your works don't make you in right standing with God. Don't focus on what you do. You are already loved before you do anything. That's still true. But today's verse means by pay careful attention to your own work means staying in your lane, focusing on the path God has given you, on the identity God created you to have, because it's so easy for us to look to what someone else is doing or to try to find an example of someone who's done it before for you to feel capable or approved to then walk out that path too. But God can't do a new thing if you're not willing to be the first. If you're not willing to be the first, that really just highlights lack of trust, right? If you're not willing to step out, if that's what God's leading you to do, it just means you need a little bit more character development. And that's okay, because we all are on a different track. We all have a different path of correction and growth and teaching that we all go through. But today's verse I think is so important because it's so easy to look at what our neighbor is doing and to either have that be evidence to make us feel better about what we're doing or to make us feel worse. Today's verse is helping us be aware of those moments where when we compare and we see someone doing less than what we're doing or isn't checking all the boxes like we think we are, and that makes you feel better about yourself, that is not a good place to be, because that reveals more about your heart than anything. It's why it says pay careful attention to your own work, because then you will get a satisfaction of a job well done from yourself. You don't need to feel better about yourself from other people's lack. And that's so common in today's world, to look at someone else. And the reason why you're comparing is because you want to make sure you're doing all right. So if someone isn't doing as much as you, it makes you feel better about yourself. If you're someone who's prone to looking at your neighbor and if they're doing less than you and that makes you feel better, that is a hamster wheel you will never get out of. And the reason why it will continue, you'll stay on this compete, compare train, is because you're constantly functioning out of a lack, out of deficit in your heart for love, that you're enough, that you're doing enough, that you're qualified or worthy. And you're really just, again, functioning in that performance-based love because you're basing your worth off of what you're doing or what someone else is not doing, rather than being filled up by the one who can sustain your soul completely before you do anything. And it's that order. When you are completely filled up first and doing everything from love, you're not going to be comparing because you're not needing love. You're not needing it. And you have extra love to give, so you're not going to be putting people down at the expense of building yourself up. You're going to be filled up, which is going to help you start to encourage the people around you. So it's a ripple of love rather than a ripple of compete, compare, judgment, and stuff that puts your heart at a deficit and keeps your heart at a deficit. Think about it. The statement, "and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone," that happens because you're filled up. You're not needing anything more. You're not needing to make sure if you're doing the right thing. You're not needing to check your self-worth through other people. Your self-worth is so concrete in the one that you know, in your relationship with God and your relationship with Jesus. And when you're able to be so concrete in your identity in God, you don't compare because you know your journey doesn't look like anyone else's. So by looking to other people for validation, that doesn't help you out. If anything, that stalls you because you're preventing yourself from going to the one who knows the blueprint on your life, from going to the one who created a unique blueprint on your life. So you know that it's wisdom not to look to other people's paths or to other people's walks because their walk is not yours. Today's title of scripture is called "We Harvest What We Plant." And God just gave me the visual of, when you plant something, you plant a seed, right? If you look at the seed, you could kind of mirror it to the idea of our fingerprint, right? Like, I don't know if a seed can be exactly the same to another one. Like, they're not cloned. They're all different seeds. Can make the same thing, but have different forms or different levels of growth or different strength. I'm not a plant expert, so don't quote me, but this is just the visual that I'm getting. Similar to how none of us have the same fingerprint. When you plant a seed, if you prevent yourself from watering that seed before you find an exact copy, if you go looking for, okay, wait, before I plant the seed, I need to find the exact copy of someone else planting the same thing, you're going to stall this seed from growing, and you never will find a replica. You never will find, if you were to do a scan of how the seed is exactly the same, I doubt you would find that. Again, don't quote me, but we're just rolling here. But the visual God's giving me is that if you stall the seed he's put on your life, you being a seed in the world to grow and flourish, and you are looking for everyone else or the same thing in someone else in order for you to start growing, you will always be stalled. You will never flourish completely because you're constantly going to be looking around for the same seed when you are a unique seed. God created you so uniquely. There is not another copy. God didn't create copies. He didn't create us to be copies. So that's why it's so important to water who you are today, to embrace who you are today, to celebrate what God is doing in you today. And if you do that, you will flourish and become someone and something that the world hasn't seen and that the world needs. Because if you are alive today and God created you, you're needed on this planet. Today's verse highlights the phrase, learning how to rejoice in your own walk. Learning how to be so content and joyful in your journey. And the only way that happens is if you kill comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy, steals your joy because it tells you that you're not enough. It tells you you're not doing enough and that you constantly need to seek others for validation, which that will never fulfill you long term. The only thing that will fulfill you long term is getting your needs met by God and asking Him to remind you who you are and to reveal why He created you. And the more you run to God, the more your identity is going to unfold, and the more you're going to stand confidently in your identity that He created you to live. So ask God, get rid of all comparison, Lord. Help me to stay in my lane, focus on the lane you've created me to live, and to get all my needs met by you so that I don't go to the world to get my needs met. Ask God to help you water the seed that you are so that you can start to bear unique fruit, the fruit that only you can bear. And I promise you will start to flourish and become exactly who God created you to be. Okay?